It's just religion. It's just religion.
Hello and welcome to RS and 5 or Less, for when you're halfway there and living on a prayer. Death is a fact of life. Benjamin Franklin famously said that the only two things guaranteed in life are death and taxes. Our understanding of and relationship with death has changed over the years. For most of human history, death was something that people would encounter very regularly. People's lives were often short, brutal, and painful. So the question we have to face looking at today's topic is, what makes a good death? This is literally what euthanasia means, a good death. It is the practice of ending a person's life in order to alleviate pain and suffering, or indeed because the person's life is seen to have no quality. This can take a variety of forms. Active euthanasia is where an action is taken in order to end a person's life. The person is alive, somebody else does an action, and that causes the first person to die. Another form of euthanasia is passive euthanasia. Passive euthanasia is the removal of something being used in order to sustain life. For example, a life support machine. Passive euthanasia removes these supports and allows death to occur. The decision of whether or not to administer euthanasia can come from a variety of sources. Voluntary euthanasia is when the person in question who will die chooses it themselves. Involuntary euthanasia is where this happens against the person's wishes. Non-voluntary euthanasia is where a person's decision is made on their behalf, perhaps because the person in question cannot. For example, maybe they're in a coma. This decision may well be being made by a family member or doctor who will be trying to replicate what the person would have wanted. The issue of euthanasia is often linked to the quality of life or the sanctity of life and the questions that surround these ideas. Click the link here for a video talking about abortion, which also discusses these issues. There are some very charged religious views about this issue. Many Christians believe that euthanasia is no different from murder. Perhaps it's murder that is sanctioned by the state, but murder nonetheless. Exodus 20 says, "Thou shalt not murder." People who are against euthanasia argue that taking a life is something only God has the right to do. That is why it is sanctioned against in the book of Exodus. Euthanasia is taking a life, and therefore it is not our place to do God's job. Similarly, opponents of euthanasia champion the hospice movement, which provides care and dignity in dying for those with terminal diseases. Many people also claim to experience a deeper relationship and understanding of God in the midst of their suffering, which can help them understand the sufferings of Christ. Other Christians argue that God is merciful and that pain and suffering is a result of a fallen world caused by sin. This was not God's original plan, and the drugs that can be used to end a person's suffering are God-given. Jesus says, "Blessed are the merciful" in Matthew chapter 5. And the argument goes that ending a person's life can be seen as a merciful thing if it gets them out of pain. There are many more arguments for and against euthanasia. Click here for a link to see more. For an extension, research Dignitas, the Swiss clinic. Is what they are doing a good or an evil? Some questions to consider. What rights do I have over my own life? Would it be okay to ask doctors to take life? Should those who are against euthanasia accept pain and suffering as the cost of being against euthanasia? And with questions of religion and life, should the quality of life or the sanctity of life have the final say?